73%. That's how much entry-level tech hiring has dropped in major tech hubs since 2022. Not down, I mean it's plummeted. And here's the really interesting part. Overall, tech employment is actually up. So the jobs exist, but the type of work has shifted in many ways, making these three safe tech careers completely, well, not really in demand. And today I'm going to show you which careers are those exactly, walk you through the actual evidence of why it's happening, and tell you exactly what you need to do instead. All right, scaling a physical network is one of the hardest problems in IT. I mean, once you move past a basic setup, you are suddenly coordinating ISPs, complex wiring diagrams, and racks of equipment that all need to be manually configured and maintained. Now, the problem with most enterprise networks is that they basically are a patchwork. You have the ISP, then you have a firewall from one company, switches from another, and access points from a third. They don't natively speak the same language, which is why fixing them is such a massive headache. This is where Meter is doing something different. They are building vertically integrated enterprise networks. So instead of mixing and matching different parts, they build the full stack themselves, designing their own custom hardware, their own switches, and the operating system that connects them all. And because they control the architecture from the wire to the wireless signal, they can push over-the-air updates to the whole system. It's infrastructure that gets smarter and more secure over time without you having to manage it. Now, to see how this full stack architecture works or request a demo, go to meter.com/tiffandtech. I've linked it in the description. All right, back to the video. Now, this video is not meant to be a doom and gloom, but rather the opposite. To find it exciting or inspiring, if anything, to know where to put your focus, where to maybe shift your focus if it's in one of these areas. Now, we are entering what economists call the Great Flattening, which basically means where the middle is now being hollowed out and those safe entry-level paths are becoming, well, dead ends. All right, let's get into it. All right, the first career that's struggling is junior web developer, but specifically what I'm going to call for this video, ticket grinder. So you know the type. I mean, the person who was hired to write unit tests, CSS boilerplate, simple CRUD endpoints. I mean, the training ground role where companies paid you to learn on the job. I had that job at one time, I'm telling you. So for 20 years, that was the deal. You get your CS degree basically, land an entry-level position, and honestly, the company knew you weren't probably profitable from day one. But what you were was an investment in the future talent pipeline. I mean, that deal, it's kind of been torn up. So here's what changed. In 2022, a junior developer took 4 to 6 hours to build a standard password reset flow. In 2026, I mean, that's a 40-second task. But it's not just about speed, it's about that AI eliminates what I'm going to call the context task. Basically, the months it takes a junior to understand your code base, read your documentation, learn your architecture. Now we have tools like Cursor, Claude Code that index your entire repository in minutes. I mean, they read your docs faster than the person who wrote them. They understand your folder structure better than someone who started yesterday. And when an AI can write bug-free pull request in 40 seconds that would take a human 4 hours to research, the business case for training that ground role doesn't really exist anymore. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let's do a demo of this. Let's go into Cursor Composer. So basically, I'm going to ask Cursor to build an authentication system from scratch. And as you can see, it's already reading my entire code base structure. It found my user table in the database. Now it's writing the backend routes, the middleware, the front-end components. It's doing it all. And it's doing it all at once. I mean, look, it's navigating my existing architecture like it's been working on this code base for months. It knows exactly where everything goes. And this kind of reinforces my point about this role, if you will. And it's hard for me to even talk about because I was in that role for so long. I mean, I remember getting hired at IBM and they said, you're not equipped for this role, but you are someone who's really keen and eager to learn. And it was that opportunity that gave me tons of opportunities from that. So it's interesting to start thinking about that challenge. I mean, when you can generate this quality of code in under a minute, hiring someone to do it in 4 hours isn't an investment anymore. It's really inefficiency. And it doesn't mean it has to be a bad thing. This is just the reality, and we kind of need to acknowledge that. And the data backs this up, what I'm saying. So basically, while senior engineering job postings are up nearly 80%, over 60% of companies have reimagined, which by the way is basically corporate speak for cut, their entry-level hiring programs. They don't need someone who can write code, they need someone who can architect systems and validate AI output. So here is the good news in all of this. If you're trying to break into tech in 2026, no, you can't compete just purely on syntax anymore. You have to compete on systems thinking. I mean, focus on the architecture, understand the business logic, learn how to design solutions that AI can't figure out on its own. Because at the end of the day, the training ground is really gone. You have to be able to train yourself now, be familiarized with these systems. All right, coming in at number 2 is the prompt engineer. Okay, do you remember back in 2023, prompt engineer was called the job of the century? I mean, people were seeing salaries of $300,000 just to, well, to talk to a chatbot, really. I mean, that lasted about 18 months. So here's why we moved from chat-based AI to what's called now agentic AI. And honestly, the difference is huge. And it happened really quickly. The old model, you give ChatGPT the perfect prompt. It gives you an answer, you iterate back and forth. The new model, you give Claude Code, for example, a vague instruction such as fix the bug in auth, and it doesn't wait for clarification. It searches your code base, it reads your database schema, and it runs tests, debugs, and it just works, fixes the issue. We've moved past the magic words phase. I mean, human language was the bottleneck. We were vague, slow, typos, but in 2026, we just use agentic loops. The AI doesn't wait for your perfect prompt anymore. It writes its own draft, runs a test, sees the error, rewrites its own instructions, and fixes the failure. We've given the machine what I call agentic autonomy. And if the AI writes its own prompts, what's a prompt engineer actually for? I mean, you don't need someone to speak to the machine when the machine can now speak to itself. For this demo, let's use Claude Code Agent. The really interesting part is it's not asking me for help. It's basically just investigating. It wrote its own diagnostic plan. Now it's testing 3 different solutions. Okay, now it is fixed. And that took, 90 seconds, was it? Maybe a little bit longer. A prompt engineer would have had to spend even 30 minutes crafting the perfect set of instructions to get this result. The AI spent 90 seconds, for example, just figuring it out on its own. And this is why prompt engineering, as a standalone career, is kind of not needed anymore. The AI is a better prompt engineer than you could ever be because it doesn't just guess, it investigates, it looks through the files, it knows. So if you've pivoted into prompt engineering thinking it was the future, rightfully so, here is something to consider. The skill that matters now isn't writing great prompts, it's orchestrating AI systems. Basically, you need to know how to chain multiple AI models together, how to validate their outputs, how to integrate them into production workflows, how to measure their performance at scale. You can kind of think of it this way. Prompt engineering was learning to talk to one AI. Now the future is conducting an orchestration or orchestra of AIs. If you want to stay really in the game in this way, start learning tools like LangChain, Crew AI, AutoGen. Really learn how to build agentic workflows. Learn how to integrate AI APIs into real systems. That's where the jobs are actually headed in 2026. Okay, look, you're probably sitting there thinking, junior developers, prompt engineers, those are kind of entry level. I'm already established. This doesn't apply to me. And honestly, that's what everyone at the senior level is kind of telling themselves right now when I'm speaking to different individuals. But the data I'm seeing suggests this isn't stopping just at the bottom. It's something we all need to be aware of. It's moving up. So let me show you what I mean. This is the third one, and the third one is probably the most sensitive, if you will, which is the dedicated Scrum Master role. And look, I'm not saying Agile is dead. I'm not saying that at all, or that project management doesn't matter. I am saying the job of having one person whose only responsibility is facilitating ceremonies and moving tickets, that's becoming kind of impossible to justify. So here's what's changed. In 2020, development teams were slower. Coordination was hard. You needed someone to manage the process full time. But now in 2026, AI augmentation teams are working at a completely different speed. And now the challenge isn't bad code anymore, it's coordination overhead. For example, Gartner's data is pretty obvious here, it's pretty stark. 20% of tech organizations have deliberately flattened their structure. So middle management is down by nearly half. So basically, when you have a dedicated person whose job it is to update Jira, run stand-ups, write status reports, you're adding what economists call process latency. And companies are figuring out that AI can eliminate most of that administrative layer. I mean, in a high-speed, AI-augmented environment, organizations are realizing that if the AI can handle status updates and risk reporting in real time, they can have self-managing teams. We're seeing what I like to call management compression, basically where the engineering lead and the AI handle coordination, which really leaves no room for the ceremonial facilitator. I'm not sure we called it at your company. That's a few companies I've been at, that's what they've called it. So if you're a Scrum Master, here is my honest take. The pure facilitator role is shrinking, but the opportunity is evolving. I mean, the companies that are cutting Scrum Masters aren't eliminating project management, they're embedding it. So basically that means they're hiring product ops specialists, engineering enablement leads, people who can basically analyze team velocity data and optimize systems at scale. So the pivot isn't to leave project management, it's to move from facilitation to optimization. Basically, learn to understand developer productivity at a systems level. That's the version of this job that is going to thrive in the future. I mean, look, if you're in one of these roles, I am not here to freak you out. That is not what I am about. But I am here to tell you that window to pivot is open and you need to act on it. It's exciting, if anything. Learn new skills, learn how to add on to what you're already doing. And the pattern across all of these three careers is the same. Repetitive work is gone. What matters now is judgment, architecture, systems thinking. You can't compete, as I mentioned, with the syntax anymore. You have to know what you're building, why it matters. And honestly, that's really the good news, because those are skills that AI can't replicate. So once again, here is what to focus on. Domain authority. Know the business logic, understand the user needs. That is how you really stay ahead moving into 2026 with tech moving so fast. All right, thank you for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. Leave in the comments what you want me to cover. We're in this really interesting evolution, speaking of evolution, with my channel, where I love to dive deep into specific topics, keeping on topics with career and growth, but also too, just doing tech explainer deep dives. So if there's anything around that you find interesting, let me know in the comments. All right, I'll see you soon.